My mother, she called my fiancé an escort. That's right. Well, guys, today's story is very unique because this is one of the stories where we get to see the perspective from OP and OP's mother. That's right. Two posters and one story. I recently got married to the woman I'm in love with, Amy. I've known her for years, and after a few dates, we've become official. I've always thought that I was lucky to have her. I'm from a rich background, sure, but I have the worst social skills and I'm lacking in the looks department. I made sure to do everything in my power to get Amy to go out with me, and now that she's my wife, nothing else matters. You might think that she's married to me for the money, but all she asked for was a simple court wedding. I told her to prepare everything because I didn't want my mother finding out about anything. My mom did not know about Amy till a few weeks to our wedding, and it might seem strange that I did not tell my own mother that I had someone I was interested in, and she was shocked when I'd broken the news about my engagement to her. I thought it was because I had not told her anything from the start and looked upset after meeting Amy. She told me that Amy was seeing someone else after the meeting and I was baffled. I asked what she meant. Of course, only for me to learn that she had seen Amy with a man while at a resort a month ago. I was engaged to Amy then. We got married a little over 2 weeks ago, so I told her that it could not have been the Amy she saw. She was adamant though, and when I told her to drop it, she told me that she was not going to accept Amy as her daughter-in-law. She'd even refused to see Amy after the first meeting, swearing that Amy wasn't going to be a member of this family. My mom and I have not ever been close. She provided everything I needed, and she was always present when she had to be. But emotionally, she was just unavailable. Deep down, I believe she sees me as some irresponsible man incapable of making his own decisions, yet she never gave me a chance to do so, always dictating what I should and should not do. I was okay with it in the beginning, when I was much younger. But it got annoying quickly, and I guess that's another reason I hid my relationship with Amy from her. I knew she would have a say in it, and that I would not like her decision. I ignored her at first. She could have easily mistaken Amy for whoever it was she saw at the resort, but was too stubborn to realize her mistake. My mother had called me a week after that, telling me that she had a feeling that Amy was, well, an escort. That was even more annoying, and I was very close to walking out on her, and that's because I still respected her. Had it been someone else, they would have gotten a good old shouting. She told me that she has done some digging and that Amy had been with 5 different men in 3 months, and at that point I began to doubt myself, after stopping to think about it. My mom was always in my business, but at the same time she wasn't stupid. In fact, she was smarter than most, and coupled with the resources she had, was a powerful one. But this was Amy she was talking about, the same woman that loved me with everything she had. She had worked a few jobs despite me wanting her to, but quit as soon as we got married. It was impossible for her to be with so many men when we were that deep into our relationship. After explaining myself to Mom, she gets furious and began to insult me. I listened to the insults. I was used to being called stupid, irresponsible, unreasonable, then promised to show me hell if I went ahead to get married to Amy. I wonder if she did that on purpose, knowing how badly it hurt me. So I walked away when she was done and got married to Amy a few days after when she was away, and even the heavens wanted nothing to stop this wedding, seeing as my mom was absent on the day I got married. I'd sent a text telling her I was now officially a married man, but got no response from her. It was expected. All I knew, she was upset with me for defying her. Well, I'll get over all this soon. Amy's well aware of my mother's feelings towards our marriage, and she promised that she'll stay with me no matter what my mom threw our way when she returned. Well, that's more than enough for me. Update number 1. I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but I live in one of the buildings owned by my family, and by that I mean my mom. It's more of an estate, and a few important workers in the business live there as well. I don't know, just think mafia and you'll get the gist of it. But my mom is into real estate and likes her privacy, so it's no wonder she has an entire estate to herself. I moved out of the main house when I was 21 and have enjoyed the small sense of privacy it gave me. I do have an apartment outside the estate, but that was given as a gift by my mom, and I don't see the point of living there when I have a larger space, so I usually rent it out as extra source of income, and my mom did not complain about it, but then again, it was my property. As soon as my mom returned, she visited, and as you can tell, it wasn't a pleasant visit. She didn't bother talking about the fact that I was now married to Amy, but I could see that she got even more upset after seeing us together, and before I knew it, she began asking Amy these intrusive questions. She asked where she went off to when she wasn't home, and who she met up with, and asked about Amy's family as well. I was going to stop my mother, but Amy had told me it's okay, so I settled for listening to her answers that my mom asked her with these absurd questions. Amy told her a few of the places she went to, and then mentioned that she had no blood relatives. I'd asked this question a few times in the past, and Amy was either very quiet or she got sad. She had told me that she did not have the best upbringing, and that her parents had passed and she was raised in an orphanage. Well, my mom had an accomplished look on her face when Amy told her all this, and she asked if Amy had grown up poor, and listened to my wife's answer her questions with that sick smile of hers. It took everything in me to stop myself from grabbing Amy's hand and walking away. There were a few other derogatory remarks, but Amy stood her ground and answered as politely as a person possibly could. I loved her more in that moment, and she had told my mom that she would invite someone over so that my mom would see the kind of person she grew up with. I had not met anyone from Amy's past before that time, so in a way my mom's nosiness paid off, and I got to see Amy's brother for myself. This time we visited my mom, myself, Amy, and Chris, a man she called her brother because they'd grown up in the orphanage together. Mom had taken a good look at Chris, then accused Amy of being a liar. Chris tried to come to Amy's defense, but my mother had shut him up, and I saw a murderous look on his face then, which I'm sure mirrored mine. I yelled at my mom, and it felt so nice doing so, and I told her that she was never going to separate Amy and me, then informed her that I would not be visiting anymore, especially after she insulted my guest. I made her know that I thought of her as the worst mother I could have been given, and told her that my happiness never mattered to her. She tried talking at that point, but I told her to be quiet before she made things worse, and also begged her not to visit. After that, I left the house with Amy and Chris. I don't even want to talk about it so much. It was very upsetting, and even now my mood has changed. I don't understand why my mother just refuses to let me live my life. I've tried to be tolerant of a son, but no more that I'm a married man. Then there was that embarrassment I felt because someone else got to see the bad side of my mother. My God, I can only hope she listens to me and lays low. Update number 2. I moved out of my mom's estate a week ago. It was something I had subconsciously planned to do, but my mom gave me the final push to do it. The only reason I didn't do anything in the beginning was because of Amy. I wanted to give her an excellent life, and living in the estate ensured that. I talked to her about it, and she said she was okay, but I could see that she missed our previous place. She told me that she had already started to see it as her home, and I felt terrible. But at the same time, she was understanding of the situation and even offered to talk to my mom about it, so I dissuaded her because it was like going to talk to a rock. My mom only listened to a person when they voiced out her exact thoughts, and yeah, I learned that the hard way. Amy had asked me for some land 2 weeks ago, and she mentioned wanting to start up a business of her own because our future seemed to hold a lot of problems. After a proper discussion with her, I decided to go along with it. My mom could wake up one morning and take away all my property so the land would be in Amy's name. She had worked a few odd jobs in the past and was a good cook, so we decided to start with a cafe before venturing into other businesses. Unfortunately, neither of us had contacts, and my mother had the contacts of almost all agents in the city. I had to place a call to one of them, and my mother found out about it. Long story short, she was livid. She told me not to buy a single thing for Amy because she was only using me for the money, and I get upset at this point and ask what she meant. She starts again with the whole escort madness, and then went ahead to mention that Amy was a gold digger who should not be trusted ever. My mom even promised to send me proof if I wanted any, but I wasn't having any of it. When she threatened to disown me if I disobeyed her, I've had enough. I begged her to let my marriage be, but it was clearly just a waste of my time. She would go to any length to ruin my happy marriage, and lies and manipulation were just the tip of the iceberg. She was just a bitter, grumpy, old woman who liked to control everything and everyone. I told her to stop trying to turn me against my wife before ending the conversation. I bought the land in Amy's name because it seemed like that was the best for our future. Then I got to spite my mom as a bonus. Amy had been excited when I'd given her the papers, and I was glad that she was. At least she no longer feels sad about us moving out of my mother's estate. As soon as I bought the land, I left the estate, and, after all, she never bluffed and would disown me sooner or later. I hope Amy's plans are a success, and I've had enough money to take care of us for a while, but I'll have to find something, soon. Amy said she would do the same as well, and we're currently making plans for the future. It'll be hard at first, but I know it'll all be fine in the long run. Update number 3. This update is from the mother point of view. So now we get to see a look from OP's mother's post. Here it is, update number 3. It's been months since I've last spoke to my son. He left the estate after buying land in Amy's name, which I explicitly told him not to, and I should have tried harder to prevent that disaster from happening. I'd waited for him to come back to the estate after finding out that I was right about his wife, but after a while I decided to investigate for myself. Things seemed peaceful over there, which was the opposite of what I assumed the outcome of their marriage would be. Now, I realized this was, maybe too much, I've sat down to reflect, and I would not want someone else to have me on a chokehold, but it's not so easy when your child is prone to making mistakes. I'm a successful businesswoman, so I can understand when an action doesn't lead to the desired outcome. But in my son's case, it's like he doesn't consider the risk of his actions, and the possibility that they will far outweigh the benefits. I can still remember the shock I felt when he told me that he was engaged to a woman. I didn't even know that he was dating anyone because my son was not high on the, attractive scale. The shock got worse when I found out that the woman he planned to marry was a good-for-nothing woman, and despite my many warnings, he still went ahead and got married to her. Then there's the issue with the land. Why can't he see right in front of him? The few times I met Amy, I could tell she was only tolerating my son. It was a sad sight, and I got annoyed when he kept defending someone that did not love him. When I found out about the land request, I knew I was right. She took her time, but she had made her first strike. That woman. And she was sly about it. I would not have minded if it was my son's name, but it's not, which makes it harder. Now, to my investigation, I found a few interesting things, and also there's the fact that I was wrong about Amy. Yeah, she was not an escort, and I wish I could apologize to my son for accusing her falsely, but the little information an employee dug up was misleading and caused me to draw the wrong conclusion. Amy was not an escort who was looking for rich men to dupe. She was a stripper. And I managed to get a video of her in a club when some money, on her legs, of course. She actually had no family, and if she did, they were probably estranged. But she was mostly alone in the city. Her friend from the non-existent orphanage turned out to be a cashier that she paid some cash to do a little acting. I don't know much about their relationship, but I've gone into the store and said hello, asking how things at the orphanage were, and he asked me what I was talking about, and when he realized who I was, eventually slipped the truth to me. I won't waste time by saying what he told me, but he did, he did it for some cash, to get a bit more cheap weed. That's true what they say, very few adults are responsible these days. He was barely older than my boy, and still had years ahead of him to do something with his life, but clearly he had given up and just resorted to a mediocre job and smoking. Oh well. My investigation did not take as much time as I thought it would, or maybe that's because I'm used to it. I worked as a personal assistant before getting married, and my employer made me do some really shady things so that he would be the best at his game. Then combined with my husband's wealth, it's almost no surprise why I'm where I'm at today. My son will have to understand that Amy is not good for him. I've given him more than enough space, and it's time to talk sense into him and ensure that he listens this time. He left the estate on his own, and I let him go because I thought he would return soon. Then again, he is his mother's son. We're equally stubborn, you know, and I'll be paying him a visit soon. He never leaves the apartment on Sundays. Amy's movements are a little less predictable, but I don't care about her. I just need to save my son from his wreck of a marriage. Update number 4. Still mother's point of view. Amy was absent when I went to visit. A few things have changed with my son, and I did not even have to convince him to believe me this time. He had found out the truth himself and is now in financial trouble. I feel bad for him, but this time I won't save him from the situation he put himself in. I think that was where I went wrong. I always came to the rescue whenever he made such a mess of things and needed me. Then there was the fact that he tried to sabotage my business to, quote, get back at me. This I learned very recently. It was saddening, but I would bounce back from the rumors. I'll start from the visit, right? Like I said, Amy was absent, and I assumed she had just gone out, but it turned out that she and my son no longer lived together. He found out that Amy was in fact a dancer when searching for a job, and a single discussion with one of the men who was a regular client of hers led to this heartbreak. And when he told me that Amy had not felt any remorse after he had confronted her, I felt bad for him. I could have tried harder to protect my son and his mother, but he refused to let me help him. Then there was the small part of me that wanted him to see for himself that I've been right all along. The major problem here is that Amy has sold the land my son had gotten for her. He had told me that he had plans to regain possession of the land since he bought it with his own money. It was going to be difficult, but he said he would try. Unfortunately, Amy was a step ahead and had sold the land without informing him, and like that was not bad enough, she had refused to get divorced from him in the beginning. When he had pushed for it, she left the house and returned with a court order. My son's not only close to being unmarried, he's going to lose everything he has as well. The court is making him give Amy a huge sum of money as alimony. His background is solid compared to hers, and he was the one who pushed for the divorce, so he really is at a disadvantage. I could only shake my head in pity as he told me everything, trying to absorb the shock. Wow. When he asked for my help, I almost said yes, but I stopped myself. It would not be an easy battle, but there's a little influence can do in this world, and he knew it. At the same time, he would go back to being the same unappreciative son as soon as the matter was resolved. He made mention of getting proof that Amy was a stripper to get the court to believe he was deceived. Only half listened, though. When I reminded him that he had called me controlling and grumpy, he went silent. At least he had some shame left in him. I went home without any promise to help him, and my decision was solidified after what he and Amy had done to defame me. I won't go into details because they're just irrelevant at this point, but some of my clients have believed him because he's my son. I knew there was a problem at some point in my business and had blamed it on competition because I was too focused on taking care of my son. Not anymore. He dug his hole he's in now, and I will not be dragged into it. Final update, still the mother's perspective. What I'm about to say reminds me of the story of the prodigal son. You know, the child who left his parents because of worldly pleasures and returned when he lost everything. That's my son right now. I wasn't as gracious as the prodigal son's father, though. After finding out that my son had tried to sabotage my business, I called him and made him understand that I was not going to be helping him with his problem. He had called multiple times after, and when I did not take his calls, he started to visit. See, what I mean by him being stubborn, he'd even moved back into the estate so that he would monitor my movements, and at first I let him do so. But at some point it got annoying, and he's the same person who wanted me to walk out of his life, yet the first problem he faced caused him to run back to me. I had a discussion with my son 3 days ago, which was the last time I saw him. I told him to stop making an effort to convince me to help him out, because I had no plans to, and when he tried to beg, I reminded him of the times that he insulted and blocked me out of his life because he thought I wanted to control him, when in fact I was only trying to protect him. He apologized for it, and I told him that I found out that he tried to ruin me, and he apologized for that as well. It was his idea, by the way. I thought it was Amy's at first, but she had even tried to convince him otherwise. When you think about it, it makes perfect sense. She wanted money and wasn't interested in cutting off any possible source of income. At least he was truthful. Then during my discussion with him, I did not think the way I did. I was angry and told him to leave the estate on his own, or I'd resort to using force to get him kicked out. I thought he was a terrible child for doing something like this to his own mother. Don't get me wrong, I don't regret anything I did. I was controlling, selfish, and a terrible mother after all. I only proved my son right. I left him the apartment. As upset as I am about everything, I don't want him to be homeless. I heard that he's living with someone else and is collecting rent from the person as well. I don't know if that's to gather money for the alimony that was forced upon him, but I do know he's doing fairly well. Then again, it's been less than a week and I don't know what the future holds for him. As for me, anyways, I'll just focus on my business and check on him once in a while because old habits die hard. But will I be letting him into the estate? No. Will I offer to help him with the funds of the alimony? No, I will not. He has to learn to be the man that he is, one way or the other. Alright guys, so the comment section of this one changed drastically from the beginning to the end. At first they were deeply supporting OP, giving examples of overbearing mothers and how they have gone through the similar situation. But the second we got to the mother's perspective from that comment postings, it just seemed like everybody 180-degree flipped. They were taking the mom's side, seeing that, yeah, this girl does look like a gold digger. And it turns out, well, she was going for the money. Anyways, let me know what you think about the end of the story when OP's mother says she's not going to let him into the estate. She's not going to help him with the alimony. I want to know what you think and what you would have done if you find yourself in OP's mother's shoes. Drop your comments down below, guys. Thank you so much for joining me on today's video. My name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories like this every day, and there's no telling what type of story we're going to talk about. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and just remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya!